Hello to everyone. My name is Isabel Mendoza from the University of Valencia. I'm going to present the findings related to the use of social media as a source of science news in Spain. Just a little background on internet and social media use in Spain. When the consultation was held, the Spanish population was estimated at 46.8 million people, and the penetration of internet reached the 91%. However, the penetration of social network users was a bit smaller than that, 62%. That is 29 million users of social networks. That's the second highest country of the 5 that are included in our sample. According to the data published by Global Index that corresponded to the third quarter of 2019, the open social networks most used in Spain, that list that the people who answered this survey had used these social networks at least one time in the previous month. A short note, not specifically to be informed about science, that's the most used ones, were the top 3 YouTube, Facebook and Instagram, and Twitter was the 4th most used with 53% of users. Regarding the closed networks, that is the networks that are used for messaging, the most cited one was WhatsApp, and followed by Facebook Messenger as a fair second. As already mentioned, the 4 topics discussed on the Concise citizen consultation were climate change and GMOs related to environmental issues, and two other topics related to health, vaccines, and complementary and alternative medicine, or CAM. The tools used to analyze the discourses were TLAB for purely quantitative reasons and NVivo for qualitative data. We were interested to learn in which topics social networks came up more frequently on the discussion, and also, of course, in which light they were perceived by the people who attended. Surprisingly, at least for me, social media related words only appear on the most used lists on 2 topics, climate change and GMOs, both related to environmental issues, especially on climate change, where we saw multiple times to appear social networks, YouTube and Twitter. That makes sense because citizens declared that they were bombarded with content related in climate change on every kind of media, and social networks were one of them, and widely used ones as well. When approaching the data with NVivo, we saw something similar. Social networks were most mentioned on the topic of climate change again, and the order of most mentioned networks, specific networks, was Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram. As you can see, Twitter was apparently overrepresented if we compare this data with the most used network that I presented before, and in opposite to this, Instagram was underrepresented. Why? We think that this is linked to the composition of the sample of our citizens. According to Pew Research Center results on on January and February 2019, 56% of Twitter users in the US, I mean, that's the data I could find, had college level studies, college level degrees. And that is exactly what happened in our sample, that we got an over representation of college graduates in our Spanish sample. Also, we tried as much as possible to have the most diverse and representative sample. As you know, in this kind of activities, the university degree, the people with a university degree tend to volunteer more than the other profiles. And more to the point, regarding climate change, citizens declare that they are bombarded with information by all possible channels, including social networks. The information on this topic was labeled many times as politicized. Maybe this is also connected to the oversharing of information on climate change on social networks that are, as you know, quite politicized nowadays. The dichotomy of excess and absence of information was something that came up multiple times. And this was, as I have already mentioned several times, the topic that social networks were most mentioned in the discussions. Regarding GMOs, GMOs was not a hot topic when we held the consultation in Spain, and neither it is today. Twitter was mentioned as a source of low quality information, but at the same time, it was other social networks were also mentioned as a quality of low quality source of information. However, the citizens remarked that it depends on who you follow, so it's not as much related to the social network you are in, but related to the people you are following in those social networks. Specific influencers such as J.M. Mulet and Francisco Mujica were mentioned, and other channels mentioned were the Wikipedia, YouTube, Google Scholar, Facebook, and WhatsApp. Something that is important to remark is that this topic was perceived as the most technological of all, and that's probably why sources such as Google Scholar and Wikipedia were mentioned. Regarding vaccines, citizens cited spontaneously the word of mouth, that means family and friends, magazines, media, internet, and social media as source of information. The quality of Twitter and Facebook, they qualify Twitter and Facebook as fundamentally not trustworthy, same as the GMO's case. Also WhatsApp, which was linked with fake news multiple times. However, they remark again that it depends who you follow. They don't blame the networks and the channels, but the people who are in them. Something we notice is that people who refer as being mostly informed via internet on vaccines are also those who express more doubt about them. And finally, regarding complementary and alternative medicine, information is found on social networks, sometimes masquerading advertising as news. Also, they mentioned blogs as a source of testimonials and radio podcasts. The conversation on this topic is unanimous about the perception that there is a lot of misinformation. on this on the complementary and alternative medicines. They have difficulty figuring out what the complementary and alternative medicines, which ones are reliable, which ones are legal, which ones are safe, and who to believe about them. So that's all from my side. Thank you so much for your attention.